Okay, in this video, and I'm going to be as careful as I can so I don't lose the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about the biggest thing is the war in the Ukraine. The war in the Ukraine, the Canadian Freedom Convoy, the U.S. Freedom Convoy, which I believe has started this week, litigation against President Trump, global health issues, and how all of these things seem interconnected and is going to lead up to the total collapse of the global economy. Okay? Let's start with the war in the Ukraine. A lot of things on the news, a lot of insane stuff. Our government is saying this using World War II quotes from Winston Churchill. Everybody hates Vladimir Putin. He's, starting all this evil crap. And there are all kinds of things going on. And I just wanted to set the record straight on some of it, okay? How am I going to do that? Well, a few hours ago, I just contacted all my wife's relatives, or my wife contacted them, and we checked on their well-being and how they are, because her mother and her aunt and her father are in their 70s, and so we tried to get a hold of them to make sure they were all right. And they told us the actual situation on what is going on there, And so, as we all know, President Putin has invaded the Ukraine supposedly. And it started a war, supposedly. And what has happened? So, after some confusion in that, we finally got through, communicated with the relatives that are there, and they're more around the Kremenchuk area by the Dnieper River. Actually, I think my mother-in-law lives on one side, her sister lives on the other side of the river. So what has happened? We asked them, what's really going on? And everything you see on the TV, I watch some of the news feeds from European news, online news and that. I guess they had airstrikes. And what everyone is fearful of is being near a military base, air base, or strategic location and getting hit in an airstrike. That one apartment building they keep showing, my wife remembered that neighborhood in Kiev, and she used to visit somebody that lived in that area of town. Supposedly, a plane was shot down, and that's what crashed into the building, and that's what you keep seeing on the news repeated over and over again. It was not attacked. There were several incidents that I've been told where innocent bystanders were killed. One guy was riding a bicycle and got hit by some sort of an explosion or shrapnel from a nearby attack that killed him. And somehow some of the precision munitions was off and hit a hostile and killed numerous people in the building. This happens. It's happened when the U.S. attacks everywhere. So when you have an actual shooting war, this goes on. Now, after watching all the different news broadcasts, they're not really showing you any type of troops fighting. I guess, like every modern war, the first stage, this air incursion, where they strike from the air. But they said that vehicles have crossed borders and are, in. See, that's what I mean. The news broadcasting isn't clear. So, what it appeared to be, and they did show one airfield that they attacked, and you see these things on the news where the bombs come, but when they show the aerial photograph, when you attack an air base, part of your objective is to destroy the runways and destroy the aircraft on the ground. when they showed this picture on the news this morning, you see an airfield with 2 runways. Several of the buildings are now smoking holes in the ground. Probably the control tower, radar, communications is all gone, and any type of an ordnance depot, which I believe in the one picture where you've seen them hit and the multiple flashes was probably they hit the ammo depot of an airfield. Okay, and those repeated explosions were the bombs going off. So when you look at that, you don't have to be a military genius or analyst to realize that what these people did is basically they've taken this airfield out of operation, and there were aircraft lined up along the runway that are undamaged and unscathed. Okay, and the tarmac is clear. So whatever they're doing, they're not destroying the country. And we asked, have they bombed the bridges? Have they blown up roadways? Have they attacked the major train? A lot of people travel from one side of the country by train. I've done it. You know, train stations are quite large and busy. There's people all the time. And the answer is no. They have not destroyed the infrastructure. I believe they have taken over most of the power plants, okay, that are generating electricity in that. They have, the Russians are in control of the Chernobyl region where that one reactor was. They are also, I guess, converging on Kyiv. Now on the other side, we had the president say under attack, all this other stuff, you know, and he wants every Ukrainian to step forward and repel the invaders, and he will give guns and munitions to anyone who steps forward. Now that one is the big thing, and that goes to the Americans. It's like our country's being attacked, we're going to just hand out rifles and everybody stands up, every citizen stands up. Now I've watched 2 or 3 YouTube news broadcasts. I don't watch mainstream news. They were based out of Europe, and they were talking to a man who was an ambulance driver in a large city there, and he was speaking, and he speaks English fairly well. They're asking him all these questions. What does it look like? What's the situation? And basically the same thing. People are in a panic. Everyone is frightened. But there were some explosions on the outskirts of town and that. But where he was, you know, nothing. And there was a Ukrainian tank parked on one of the main streets downtown, just waiting. And you'll see little barricades with Ukrainian soldiers throughout the area. So they asked the question, hey, the president said he's handing out rifles to everyone. And he said, well, yeah, they said that, but he goes, they're just not telling you where to go to get this gun issued. So he says they're saying it, but he's not seeing arms being passed out to the citizens just randomly. That's not true. And my wife's aunt said that that's a load of horseshit, and basically she said that all of the mainstream news agencies are lying. Be it the Russian one, be it the Ukrainian, and what the United States is saying. She goes, all of it is not true. What has happened, like she said, you don't live near any type of a strategic target, be it air defense or air base or military base. She's, you know, my wife asked, are they destroying the bridges across the rivers? No. Are they destroying and disrupting the railroads, which is still a very used part of the infrastructure of the country? And no. She said what's happened, and the thing that alarms her the most, is she's not in fear of her life from being bombed or whatever. But she said it's how the people panic, because the vast majority of people, I've said it, my wife, we had the same consensus, that he was never going to really attack or invade or do this, okay? And many of the people in Ukraine also believe that. Because this whole situation started in 2014, and this has been going on forever. There has been this incursion where he took over a section of this, and supposedly the Crimea had a vote and accepted to be annexed into Russia, which people say that that vote was invalid and, you know, tampered with. Ooh, can you believe that? But this has been going on, an ongoing thing since 2014. So I guess what it is, the powers to be, they tried to get with the current government, get the Ukraine into NATO. Now the problem with that is the Black Sea Fleet, the naval bases, and a good part of the Russian Navy is based out of the Ukraine. So you can't lose like 1/4 of your naval forces and access to the Black Sea and the Med by letting the Ukraine join NATO. All right? Just ain't gonna happen. It's plain and simple. It's pretty obvious. So, this has been dragging on since 2014. This is what most people believe is the main consensus. They were trying to push this, and the current president and government was trying to get the Ukraine in as a NATO ally and underneath Western influence. And I guess Putin just got to the point where he said, that ain't gonna happen, okay, and invade the country. Is it as bad as they say it is? That I can't say for sure, but these are older people in their 70s that say, yes, it's scary, but I'm not in fear of my life. I don't believe a missile will come and hit the building we live in. And my wife asked, are there people looting? She was worried that the older people will be attacked by looters in this when society collapses, and we were told no. That is not a fear, that is not going on. The people are frightened and trying to move away from the larger cities or something they think will be a target in case of errant bombs or missiles. And they're all moving to the country, friends, family, and getting out of the cities, the major, huge cities. So that's not going. What is going on is everyone is panicked. And she said, you could go to the store and find like meat and perishable items in the store. What's happened is everyone's gone crazy. They took dry goods or something that you can store without refrigeration or electricity, and any type of that food stuff is gone from the shelves. Everyone's bought it up and run off. There are restrictions. Now this is key. This is the key thing. I guess being retired, her aunt has one card that your pension's paid. It's a bank card. So you have a pension card, then I guess she said credit card, but I think it's a debit card to get into your normal bank account. Well, what's happened is they've frozen how much money you can take out. So in other words, none of this crap, everyone taking all their money out of the bank. They're only allowed to withdraw so much money each time in a time period, which is pretty restrictive. And I guess you're also restricted to where you can only buy like 10 gallons of gasoline, or 9, it's in liters, but it's about 9-10 gallons at any one time. And again, I don't know if there's a time like once a month or whatever, you know, you're only getting sold 10 gallons of gas, and that's it. So it's screwed up, but it's not as terrible as they're portraying it on the TV. And yes, all the men from 18 to 50 or whatever it is can't leave the country and are supposedly going to be in a call. So my wife's worried her two cousins, who are in their 40s, are going to be drafted, and her aunt, it's her two sons, she's worried they're going to be drafted into the military, or, you know. But I said, look, if he's advancing this quick, and they say Kiev's going to fall in 24 hours or so, he's going to surround the city, make the president relinquish power, and basically this whole conflict would probably end at that point. Okay? I said they can't, even if they have a call-up and say national emergency, all the men of this age, I said they can't call up an army in 4 or 5 hours. All right, this takes days, weeks, whatever. So by the time they start looking for people and telling them to mobilize, this is probably going to be over. We all hope. As far as passing out weapons to where everyone's going to fight a guerrilla war, that's not going to happen neither. That's all fiction. Okay, so the only thing I guess is lines of communications are open. We can contact in-country relatives and check on their well-being. And what they're saying is a lot of it is, well, you know, anybody dropping bombs and stuff, it's a frightening thing. But it is not as it's being portrayed. There's a lot of information out there, and my aunt says that she calls friends from all over the country, in the north, in the west, the east, south, okay? She says, I contact all these people on a list and see what's going on where they live. So that's about as truthful, at least that's what I was told this morning, the current situation there. Now, where this thing plays in, and this is another thing, you have to put all the little pieces of the puzzle together. President Biden was saying that they were going to do this invasion last week. Well, they're a week behind schedule, I guess. So it wasn't this last Wednesday, it was the Wednesday before they were going to attack, which is kind of odd that he's predicting the day they're going to attack. Now, what happened in Canada, and that's another thing, this was on the news constantly. When they invoked that Emergency Powers Act, I guess they forcibly removed any people protesting. I haven't heard anything and I haven't seen any live posts. I don't know what the situation is there, but supposedly anyone there that resisted, their bank accounts have been frozen, their vehicles, if they wouldn't move them, have been towed and removed. So now everybody was looking at Canada and the situation there, and they had a vote in Parliament, I've seen parts of the vote, where they said that they voted and said yes to leave the emergency powers thing or whatever in place. Well, that was rescinded the day before the invasion of the Ukraine. Trudeau came out and said, we're gonna rescind that order. But, curious thing is, all of the people put on this list, anybody that sent money or whatever, or anybody who's had their bank account frozen, is still locked out of their bank accounts for money. And the one woman that was part of the organizer, she's in jail without no bail or anything, and they don't know if she's ever going to see the light of day again. So now everybody's turned their focus away from Canada. Now this week, we started our Freedom Convoy. I don't know when it's going to pass through Greensboro, but I may go up there and see it go on Highway 40 as they head to Washington, D.C. Nobody's quite mentioning that. They were talking about security, the National Guard being put in D.C. for this and everything else. Now, this is kind of, you don't hear much about that. I did see a few things where people were coming down from Pennsylvania with trucks. They had Canadian flags. So we were going to have our freedom thing. Now, all of this kind of revolved around global health issues, okay? And all the things involved with them. So this is what this was. Now, in Canada, I guess the outgoing thing was either change certain policies or step down from power, and the message was that ain't gonna happen, you're a traitor to your country. I believe this Freedom Convoy is making the same statement here in the US. Now, the US has reacted differently. The heads and powers to be of these different centers that make these decisions, I guess about the same time Putin invaded the Ukraine, also said that the health issues are solved and the procedures and things involved with it don't necessarily, it's kind of like it all just faded away. That's what I've heard. I'm not sure, I'm not certain if it's official, but it's kind of been broadcast. Well, the director of this said, you know what, these problems are gone and we don't need to worry about it anymore, basically in a roundabout way without being specific, and shut down from YouTube forever. So miraculously, our problem, which is a similar problem to that up in Canada, our problems have just disappeared. It's like no longer an issue. And also coincides with this invasion of the Ukraine. Now, former President Donald Trump has been in the news, and there was a whole long list of litigation, indictments, or inquiries, or whatever, into him and his whole family, wife, children, the dog. All of them were under suspicion of being in league with the Russians and committing illegal acts and all this other stuff. And this was going on, and apparently all of a sudden, the same time Russia invades Ukraine, I heard, my wife was following this on different news things, that all of a sudden all this litigation is just stopped. Okay? So all these things together sound very odd. And the one thing that the politicians, again, saying about Russia invading Ukraine, is that we have to prepare that the United States is going to suffer over this, and basically what's going to happen is our gas prices are going to skyrocket because of all this war in Europe, this horrible war like World War II, and we had to shut down the gas lines or something, the natural resources that come out of Russia that they're selling. And Russia is going to be hammered with sanctions and all this other stuff, and they're going to have all of Western Europe go green. So they're not going to buy evil Putin's gas and oil no more. They're going to go green, and it's like Tucker Carlson. Watch that guy. It's hilarious. You know, they're saying democracy this, democracy that. But the number one producer of solar panels and all this is China. He goes, which is not a democratic country. So, and somebody else, another analyst, has said that going green and cutting off all fossil fuels and that immediately, like they're saying they're going to do, he said is some kind of weird Marxist pipe dream that won't work. So now we're being told as Americans that they're going to defend this democracy, they're going to freeze all the bank accounts. All of this is talking about bank accounts, assets, not being able to transfer or send money. This is kind of the underlying thing. If you sort through all the nonsense, it's all boils down to money. Okay? So now we're told that there's going to be inflation. It's some kind of, you know, it's going to be out of control in this country. And again, we're all blaming it on the war in the Ukraine. But it seems to me that a deal was struck. And I don't believe any of the stuff they put on the TV, but a deal was struck where they're going to allow Putin to take the Ukraine back, and he's going to have it where he controls that region. Okay, and the reason, if you look at a map, the reason he's talking about Estonia or Latvia or one of them countries is Russia after World War II up there, I think in the North or Baltic Sea, there's a small chunk of land, if you look at that map, up in the corner of Poland and up in there, there's a small area that is part of Russia. Okay? You can access it from the water, but you can't drive through Ukraine through one of those Baltic countries to get to it. So in a way, when they say he's looking to get back all the former Soviet satellites, like post-World War II, that's not true either. He won't be able to do that, but it would be good to have influence in that one country to where he can access his thing there. If he would take back like Romania, Bulgaria, and all these, I doubt that very much. I do not believe that is what the Russian plan is, okay? Because they're saying, oh, he's going to take the Ukraine and go further. I doubt that. I doubt that very much. And that's more rhetoric to scare the hell out of everyone and go forward with this. But what I believe is going on is a deal's been made, and because the health issue weapon thing is not working like it should, okay, combined in the fact that this is an economic war, and we've been in one for a while, what you're going to see is, yes, it's unfortunate what happens to Ukraine. People are going to die. It's not a good thing. But look behind the scenes, because there's too many other weird things going on at the same time. Okay? And there's going to be a huge impact on the global economy with this. In other words, the powers that be are going to pull a fast one. Okay? And this is what's gonna, harm us here in America. I don't believe this freedom convoy, because it looks like they're giving in. They're gonna do something to where the whole point of this thing is gonna be moot. Okay, and watch out, because the underlying thing here that's going on, it's not so much warfare, protests, or any of this other stuff. It is the fact that they are gaining control over your ability to get your funds. Because who has their net value in cash sitting somewhere in the house? You don't. I write checks. You make electronic payments, okay? You can't send, even if you had cash, you can't send cash in an envelope to the power company to pay your electric bill, okay? You have to either write them a check, which if your bank account's frozen, your checks are no good. Use a debit card or credit card, which if your bank account's frozen, those are no longer any good. You have no money. Basically, whether you have money or not, when they freeze your accounts, if you have cash, that's it. But most of your bills, like during, this thing, I went to get the oil changed in my vehicle, and they had a sign right up there. We will not take your disease-infested money. You have to pay with some sort of electronic payment through the thing. You couldn't pay in cash. Okay? So, they already were starting this. This is all part of the plan. And it looks like, everybody knew something had to break one way or the other. And this invasion of the Ukraine and this war there is the breaking point, and it's going to settle up some things, but watch for the economic impact, okay? Because everything they're talking about doing to Russia has nothing to do with the military, with bombs, with fighting, or anything. All of this is economic impacts, freezing of bank accounts, freezing of assets. It is an economic war, okay? And unfortunately, I think things are going to change where life here in the United States is going to be uncomfortable here in the near future. All right, so that's what I've heard in my opinion. All right, guys, thanks.